Good morning, and welcome to day 11, week 3 of F260 at First Baptist Meridian. Today we look at Genesis 18 and 19, and if you've already read these passages, you probably have a question or two. When my wife finished her Bible reading this morning, she hit me with a list of questions, and then she said, all right, now go make a video and answer all of them. So if you're with her, then you'll probably be equally disappointed by the end of this video. As always, we cannot talk through everything and may not be able to do a good job of talking about anything, but hopefully the video will put a little bit more context in the passage. Again, when God first called Abraham, he promised that he was going to do things in Abraham's life, that he was going to bless Abraham so that his family would be a blessing to others. That's detail number one to keep into consideration. Detail number two is it seems like at one point at least that Abraham thought his nephew Lot might be his descendant. And so a dispute had arisen between Abraham's men and Lot's men. And rather than cause strife, Abraham took the hit and said, Lot, I tell you what, you choose which land you want and I'll take the other half of the land. And Lot chose what appeared to be the choice land near the city of Sodom, and apparently ultimately settled in Sodom. And the third aspect is this outstanding promise from God that in order to fulfill that promise to Abraham, in order for Abraham to be a great nation, a blessed nation that blesses other peoples, Abraham's going to have a son. God told him in Genesis 15 that this son would come from his own body, and he told him in Genesis 17 that it would come from Sarah's own body. Abraham responds to that in Genesis 17 by falling on the ground laughing. Sarah responds to that news the same way in Genesis 18 by laughing, even though she tries to deny it. So as we mentioned Friday, when Isaac finally arrives, his name, Yitzhak, means laughter. He laughs. So how does all of that come together in this passage? Well, it's interesting. You see the difference that it makes of where you set up camp, where you put down roots. Abraham does not have the choice land. And yet when these three visitors arrive, and their identity is highly debated, some say the Lord and two angels. The Lord visits and talks with Abraham, and the two angels go on their way to Sodom. There's several ways it's been figured up, as your study Bible notes probably indicate. But when the Lord and these two angels, when the three visitors show up, they are greeted with hospitality in Abraham's camp, but hostility by the people of Sodom. And so you see the difference. Abraham and his camp will be blessed. That's a hospitable place for God. Meanwhile, in Sodom, there is hostility, and that will bring curse, the destruction of the city. What Lot thought was the choice land ends up putting him more than once in the path of danger. Remember, he was previously kidnapped because of where he lived, and Abraham had to save him. And now, even though Abraham took the hit and didn't get the choice land, even though Abraham's already saved his nephew, when he hears that God is going to destroy Sodom, Abraham intercedes on behalf of the city, and you're beginning to see a priestly aspect of God's people take place. They're not just the people who try to live rightly before God. They are people who try to stand in the gap for a world gone wrong. And so Abraham pleads with God, if I can find this many righteous people in the city, will you spare it? If I can find just this many righteous people. Ultimately, the number gets down to 10, and since judgment comes, presumably not even that many could be found. Second, you see this ongoing aspect of where you go and where you plant yourself affects, in some sense, who you become. In Sodom, there's clearly sexual sin going on. They essentially want to rape the angelic visitors, and Lot, offers them his daughters instead. And then even after they flee, at the end of the chapter, Lot becomes drunk, and both of his daughters go to sleep with him. resulting in two nations that will cause problems for Israel down the road, Amnon and Moab. And so you just see different stories taking shape. You see, because of a seemingly small choice a long time before this passage, where they settled, how they related to each other and God. Abraham, despite all appearances, is now poised for blessing when God fulfills his promise. And Lot, despite all appearance, he got the choice land, is disposed for problems within his own family and within the nations that will come from them. And so just keep these things in mind as the text continues to take shape in the days to come as you read, reflect, and respond to God's word. And remember that sometimes even small choices produce great currents in our lives over time. God bless.